How's it going, folks? It's Marshall. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. We're going to do a studio tour for you today or tonight or whatever it is. It's tonight right now here. This is the first tour I will have done being in my new place here in Florida. I moved here in July of 2019, so it's a little bit different. It's a lot different place in terms of my house, obviously, and physical location, obviously. But yeah, let's take a look at what we have in the new studio. All right, first of all, so there's more than one actual studio. I might be a little echoey here because, you know, from this direction, this is a hallway, and the real not the real studio, but the main studio is here, and this is kind of like the live setup, and yeah, so I'll be going through both of these here, so stay tuned. All right, let's start off where I would normally be sitting here. This is kind of my main setup here. A couple of computers that run this whole thing. We've got this monitor, and this monitor, all powered by this machine down here. And you'll see the focus right down there is blinking as I speak, because this is actually the, I call it the video production machine. This is all the cameras that would be up here. I'm actually using the camera that would normally be here. It's a Sony 4K camcorder thingy. Anyway, yeah, so this computer handles all that. And any guests or anything like that will be handled with this machine. And again, we've got a screen here. Normally I would have, if I've got guests or if I'm a guest and I can see the other participants, I'll usually use that for that. That's my Wirecast main screen, and then the main output here. Right now, just kind of doing duties this way. And sometimes I'll configure things a little differently, but so yeah, 3 screens for that machine. Then we got 2 screens here, which are for this computer right here. And this is the Big Daddy. This is a Core i9 custom built PC. Both of these are custom built actually. But this is the Big Daddy running the Core i9 Intel CPU. I built this, I think it's pretty recent when the i9s came out. So I know this is probably a year or 2 years old, something like that. But yeah, it runs like a champ and no problems at all. Yeah, so here on my main desk, this whole setup here will normally change quite a bit depending on what I'm doing. And right here we have Behringer TD3. This is cool because the TD3s are clones of the Roland TB3, which the TB3 is one of my favorite synths of all time. Even though I've never had one, I've just always loved the sound of the TB303. And I have a couple of the Roland Boutique. I have the Roland Boutique and I have the Air TB3. Now those are boxed up in a closet, but this is the first kind of analog clone I've got. I have 2 of these. But the I remember the XOX box, Zox box, however you call them. I always wanted to get one of those, but they were kind of expensive, whereas this was super cheap. But yeah, over here is kind of my main controller. This is a Novation 61SL Mark II, and the camera's having a hard time focusing. This is old, but like it has so many controls and things. It works great, and I'm actually utilizing it a lot here lately while I'm beta testing this this new product by Oleg Mikheyev. It's called Blue Arp. This is the Blue Arp DM Mark I. This is based on the actual software, you know, plug-in called Blue Arp that you can get on your DAW for free. But this is a hardware version. It's like 8 instances of that Blue Arp plugin. Really having a blast doing some beta testing for Oleg. It's a great machine, works fantastic. I've got a demo on the channel if you want to check that out of me using this live. Then over here we've got an Ableton Push. This is the version 1. You know, I don't see the need to upgrade this. I've got 3 of them and they work fine, so I don't know. I guess unless they break, which having 3 of them, and I don't use them all the time, obviously. I'm using this one all the time, but if it breaks, I got 2 other ones, and the other ones I can use for live stuff as well, not have to remove this one. So anyway, I don't know. I like the Push. The Push 1 works great, no problems at all, and I've had it for years now. So let's talk about this whole setup up here. This is like a double beam thing. I guess it's not really a truss, because I think a truss you'd need to have the X things that kind of connect these. These are literally just 2 like aluminum beams. And there's another extension here that would make this even longer that I could put onto the end, but obviously it won't fit this direction. But yeah, this has worked fantastic for me to be able to mount cameras above here and do synth demos or, you know, videos or whatever with top-down views. And I like it because the dual beam thing makes it super stable, and I can hang lights. So I've got these light panels here. I usually have at least 3 cameras up here. Right now I'm using this one, which is that Sony and a GoPro, and I'll usually have at least one more GoPro or something up there. Yeah, it works great, and they're just on these C-Link stands. I can't remember I can't remember what they're called, but they're lighting stands basically, and these things just kind of mount right up in here. So, and then the cool thing is with the way these are, I can adjust these lights and everything's gravy. All right, for studio monitors, I'm still rocking the M-Audio BX8As that I've had since 2004. These are literally the first pair of studio, you know, powered monitors that I've ever purchased. I thought about replacing these, but you know, I figured unless I'm gonna do treatment to this room, I probably don't need to be wasting money on other monitors. These are fine. They have their issues in terms of frequency response. They tend to be a little bit heavy on the low end and a little bit high on the high end, but my ears are super used to these, and so I kind of know what I need to do in the production realm to compensate for things. The only main issue I've had is the new rooms here since I've moved, and I've actually moved this around here a couple times in the place, but this is kind of where things are going to remain, I think, for a while anyways. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm just getting used to the new space with these, but using reference tracks and things like that, I'm usually able to compensate pretty well. And then I've got the BX subwoofer down here. That guy has been very useful. I don't crank it up. It's, you know, I try and balance it, and it's got a crossover so that these things aren't pushing out as much of the low, you know, the low lows. This is what's doing it. Although I think these have a cutoff of like 30 hertz or something like that, 45 or 30, I can't remember. They have a fairly good frequency response by themselves, but I need to have this low end here for the, you know, the super subs, so I can hear and make sure I'm not muddying everything up. Then you got Arturia key step. Don't use that too much, but it's good to be able to plop something small up here if I'm doing some other stuff, or for a real quick hookup to something like this here, which is a JP8080. Now this synth is it's the rack version of the JP8000, which is, you know, very famous super saw synthesizer. It's the first synth that had the super saw on it as an oscillator, which is 7 detuned sawtooth waveforms, and it is literally the sound of trance, and I love it. And they're good for more than that, obviously, but you know, this one here is, I think the 8080 is a 10 voice, whereas the 8000 is 8 voice. And then this also has a vocoder feature on there, which the 8000 does not. Other than that, they sound identical. And I like having the rack here because there's a third-party plugin that I have for the computer that I'm able to control this and not have to touch the front panel, which I really like. The rack unit stuff, I really like having software to control from here. Just because, yeah, then I can use this controller or whatever controller I have and program it up, and even though it's all the way down here, and I like that. So this is the main mixer for the studio here. This is a Yamaha 01V96 V2. So this is it's a cool mixer, but you know, I don't know that I really need anything this big anymore. I was thinking about maybe switching it up to Behringer X32 or something else that isn't this big. Although it is nice because it's got faders and it can be programmed. It's got plenty of features and all this stuff, and it works great, but like half the stuff on it I really don't use. So I can go with a rack mount unit or something that has maybe even some more inputs. It'd be nice. But basically I've got 2 snakes here for 16 channels that run into this patch bay down here. All the synths in the studio in this room here are patched into that patch bay, and I can patch them all into here. This mixer also has an application that I can use on the computer to remote control this, which is really cool. So I can, as I move sliders around or whatever, you see them kind of doing their thing. This is the Moog Tower of Power, as I call it. And I call it that because it's basically 3 Moog Slim Fatties polychained along with this little fatty here, this white little fatty. So I've done a demo video on this on the channel, and I gotta tell you, this is amazing being able to polychain these. Now the little fatty here, this is probably my favorite synth of all time ever. This is the third one I've owned, because the other ones I owned when I was younger and had to sell. But I've had this one for several years now. And yeah, the little fatty and the slim fatties are kind of my favorite synths. So to be able to polychain these was a really cool thing to do. I bought one of these from Mr. Cowfood. If you guys watch the Let's Talk Synths episodes that I do on the channel, one of these I bought from him. So thank you, Mr. Cowfood. They're all routed into this XR12, this Behringer XR12. So these three purple cables are the slim fatties. Then the black one here is the little fatty over here, and they're all just polychain. So this kind of sums everything up, like the mixer section in a synth, in a poly synth. And yeah, then I output that into the patch bay and make magic. All right, so let's move some of these spaghetti out of the way. Down here is a Proteus 2000. This is a really cool synth. I picked this up because I was working on some Halo Combat Evolved covers. In other words, Halo Combat Evolved, the soundtrack was made by Marty O'Donnell, and he utilized the Proteus 2000 as well as this guy down here, the JD 990. And I'm sorry, my camera's not picking up light very well in here. But that one I had some screen issues with. You guys will see some videos on the channel if you go way back a few years ago. So I swapped that out with an OLED that I picked up off of eBay. Some guy in the UK makes them. So I bought one, and presto changeo, there it is. So yeah, but then below that we have an Integra 7 and an XV5080 module. And obviously the 990, and then the Triton rack. Now this I have several of the sound cards for, but I have not installed them. So eventually I'll do that. And I actually don't really use most of these. I don't really use them that much, but they're good to have because they've got some bread and butter. They've got some classic sounds. It's always good to have these kind of things in your library. Now the cool thing is with the Roland Cloud, the XV5080 is actually in the Roland Cloud now. And so that's cool. Then down here is an XR18. This is kind of my main audio routing setup for the streams and the live shows. That all kind of routes back into here as well. So like everything, like I've got outputs routed from here to here. I've got things routed to where like audio coming from here goes into this machine and back out to the thing, and it's kind of a complicated setup. I'd have to really show you kind of a wiring diagram of how everything goes. But also audio from the other room comes into this, because that way I can record it into Wirecast for streams and shows and videos and etc. All right, so over here is the triple Moog stack. So we've got obviously the little fatty and white, which I love. Then down here we have the Sub 37. Amazing synthesizer, lots of controls. The only thing that's really bugging me about it is the keys on mine have kind of starting to go a little yellow, and even kind of on the little fatty here. And I know these are kind of next to a window here, but these weren't really, I don't know. They've kind of been next to windows from time to time, but like, I don't know. The problem is that these keys are probably made from ABS plastic, and ABS plastic is known for yellowing in UV sunlight, and that's bad, especially for how much these cost. Cheap keys that yellow is no bueno. Now down here is a Mini Moog reissue Model D. This is a Mini Moog Model D reissue, and I love the Mini Moog. It's one of the classic synths that I've always wanted to have, and I'm glad that I was able to get a hold of one of these reissues when they were still being made by Moog, and I love it. So there it is, Mini Moog reissue. All right, so now we'll talk about the synth wall, the wall of synth here. Up here we have an Alesis Andromeda A6. This is a vintage 16 voice analog synth. It's actually 16-part multi-timbral also. This was released around the year 2000, so this is actually one of the first fully analog synths to come back on the market. I don't think that there was any full analog because in the 90s and stuff, everything was virtual analog. So I think this was kind of the first synth that came back. I think this was kind of the first synth that came back with the analog. You know, analog resurgence started here. Then I remember the Voyager, I think, was shortly after this in like 2003 or 4. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think I really like it. Now, in all full honesty here, I haven't dug into this as much as some of the other synths that I own yet, but this is also fairly new for me in my studio, and I definitely plan to give this some more time under my fingers here. Down here we have a Waldorf Quantum. Now this is a hybrid synth that is really fantastic for experimental things. It's got granular, it's got, well, we can see right here. So you can see right here, we've got wavetable, we've got traditional waveform, we've got particle, and we've got resonator. So, and then they've added some more FM type stuff in version 2 of the software and some other things. So really amazing keyboard. Synth, this thing is awesome. Love it, love it. Down here is the Moog 1 16 voice polyphonic analog synthesizer, my dream Moog synthesizer. And here it is. This is serial number 7, by the way. So I was lucky enough to somehow get a sub, you know, one of the first 10 Moog 1s ever made, chilling right here, number 7. So down here we've got the Waldorf Kawai, and this is a really cool synth. Now, this was kind of, I think people were expecting it to do something that it was never advertised to do. So this was always presented as a virtual analog synthesizer that's multi-timbral, more similar to this down here, which is the Virus TI2. But this is FPGA, and that means that the waveforms are super high sample rate, and that means that there's zero aliasing. You get in the high registers on a digital synth that's DSP powered, and a lot of times you get aliasing, and you can hear that, and it sounds bad. Just ask the M-Audio Venom all about aliasing, because I think they decided that they loved aliasing, and they just made that thing alias all over the place in the Venom. But anyway, this is like the complete opposite of that, where it sounds beautiful. I'd say out of all the synths in the studio, this one sounds the best in terms of just clarity of the way it sounds. The other thing is having a dual mode where you can stack, where you get 2 voices and they split left and right, and stereo filters, it just, you start going gonzo. And the other thing is being 8-part multi-timbral, streaming over 1 USB cable. That's how I have it hooked up right now. And you don't have to hook up a bunch of audio cables for that. Now, kind of like this, the TI2, and I love the TI2. It's up there on my list of one of my favorites, and it's definitely, you know, a classic in its own right. But it's definitely, you know, it's old. It still has plenty of life in it, though, I think, and I thought maybe I could get rid of it when I got this, but not quite. I mean, it's a virus, and that's cool as hell, and I'm gonna keep it. But this also, TI integration with the TI plugin still works, and I'm still using it that way. Hopefully Access, you know, you guys either need to keep up with that application so it continues to run on modern hardware, or please release a TI3. But don't give up on the plugin. I need that plugin. Okay, so over here we've got the Matrix Brute. Now, some of you are watching this and are already aware of the Poly Brute that was just announced here recently. This is a paraphonic synthesizer, so meaning it's monophonic, but you can use the 3 oscillators to play polyphonic notes without full articulation, if that makes sense. If you know what I'm talking about, just watch, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, because there's just some kerfuffles, and this was one of the synths that kind of started people talking about what is paraphonic, what is polyphonic, why do people call things paraphonic instead of polyphonic, and blah, blah, blah. This is technically, in terms of marked audio, as far as I understand, polyphonic, but without full articulation. So that means 1 filter, 1 amp envelope, and that's all you get. So still you can do some really cool things. I have neglected this in recent months, and actually maybe the last year or 2. I don't think I'm gonna sell it though. I was kind of on the fence, maybe selling it a little while ago, but I think I'm gonna keep it. It's just such an easy thing to use, and I definitely will use it again. So I think you know, Matrix Brute, I think you get a stay. Now the Poly Brute, will I get one of those? I don't know. Well, that's probably a whole topic for another conversation and another video. But yeah, Matrix Brute, awesome. Then we go up here to the VSynth right above here, and this is a VSynth GT. Now this is like having two original VSynths in one package. Has the vocal designer built into it. Now that was a separate card in the original VSynth, or if you had the VSynth XT, which was like the original VSynth but in a rack mount, that had the vocal designer and the D50 card, I think, built into it. But the VSynth, I love the VSynth, and I think this is the last really truly innovative synth that Roland released in modern years. Maybe the System 8 with the plug-out technology and the ACB, but I think they're kind of abandoning that and going with the Zencore crap, which you'll never see in this studio. Up here we got the Nord Wave. If you look at like some of my oldest videos I've owned a lot of Nord synths. A Nord Lead 2X and a Nord Lead 3. And the Nord Wave was kind of the last one that I got, and it's the only one that I've kept. I did sell, I had one and I sold it again in my 20s, blah, blah, blah. I need to eat food, so I would buy and sell a lot. But I did pick one up again because I really love the comb filter on this. And it's got a really cool ability to be able to import samples and use them as oscillators, and it does FM really well, and it has a lot going for it. Now the Wave 2 is this on steroids, and I hope to maybe eventually get one of those Wave 2s in here. We'll see what happens. All right guys, so that wraps up this room. Now, multiple rooms. We're gonna head over here to the other studio, which is, holy crap, this would normally be somebody's dining room, but it's my live setup. So in here, this is where I've been doing kind of more synth demos, and I've got some lights here. I would normally shut this off, put some lights on, you know, set the mood, right, and then jam out. But we'll keep the lights on so you guys can kind of see what's going on. Plus, you know, I don't want any of you guys like kissing each other or whatever during this, because the lights are off. So let's start here with the ARP 2600. This is the Korg reissue that just came out, and I was lucky man to be able to get a hold of one of these. They only made like 800 for the whole world or something like that, only like 500 or 400 or something in the US. So beautiful. I think I love this more than the Mini Moog, and that's saying something because the Mini Moog was kind of my holy grail for a long time. But this is just super cool. You can do all this kind of FM weirdness, and then having it being semi-modular, you can patch in all kinds of crazy stuff, sample and hold. I don't know. This thing is... Korg has done an amazing job, and thank you, Korg. I wish other companies would do reissues similar to this. Then we got the Korg Radius over here, so kind of going into my Korg stuff a little bit. This was a synth that I had owned in the mid-2000s. 2006 is when this was released, and I did buy one that year. Again, I had to sell it at one point, and I bought another one, and here it is. Now, I've got a demo of this on the channel. Also, a lot of these synths I have demos on the channel, so if you're interested in kind of hearing these, check out my channel for some more stuff. Then I've got a black TD3 from Behringer. This, I felt like a couple things, you know. I kind of told them to make a black one, and they kind of featured that comment on one of their teaser trailer thingies or whatever, and I was like, yep, perfect. So I bought a black one, I bought a yellow one, and I've got two of them, and they're pretty cool. So yeah, that's here. This is a Yamaha A11X, and the A11X is cool. It's kind of the competitor to the JP8000 and the JP8080. Came out around the same time. This has an editor on the computer, which is awesome because the interface is complete garbage. I mean, who is gonna program anything? Let me get this out of the way. Who will be able to I mean, this is just a nightmare, Yamaha. You know, and I know they make the PS series, and those should stand for pieces of shit. But Yamaha, in my opinion, has yet to make a synth with a decent interface. It does sound good though, but my God, you know, this is like reminds me of the M-Audio Venom with the way that works, and I don't like that at all. But it's a good sounding synth, and you know, it's not the worst interface ever. That trophy goes to the DX7 in my opinion. So let's go over here. This is kind of like my live rig rack, I guess you'd call it. I've been working on this for a long time. This whole setup in here is supposed to be what I would bring out if I was to do a live show. Not necessarily every synth in here would go with me, but the core of it here being a PC here. This I'm gonna get rack mounted eventually. This is actually my old music production PC that I used before I built the new one. That's the Core i7. So this is still a pretty capable machine, and I think it'd be perfect for a live rig. I just need to get a rack chassis and put it in there. We have another computer here. This is a 1U rack that I built, and that's actually what drives this LED screen here, this LED curtain thing. And it does a really good job. And it's, like I said, it's a 1U rack, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. It's like a Core i5. It does its job for this. I could do audio reactive stuff. You'll see some of the demos I've done in here. I can have the notes or whatever I'm doing trigger the screen and do different graphics, and I design those graphics in some software, and you can see it here. And then this is kind of the screen for this machine. And the cool thing is I can use like Parsec and control from another, like normally I would probably put like a Surface laptop here, and like a Microsoft Surface or some kind of tablet with Parsec that I'm actually controlling, you know, have access to this machine. Anyway, that's a whole other video probably for that. Here is an original VSynth. Why do I have more than one VSynth? And it's because they're awesome. This was one of the, I remember, not this one specifically. Again, I had to buy this when I was had more money in the bank as an older gentleman. But this was one of my favorites before I started getting little fatties and some of the analog stuff really tickled me fancy. But this VSynth here was super cool. I'd done some demos on this. It makes amazing. The engine in here is just super good. And the control stuff, you know, I make fun of these D-beams because they're kind of gimmicky and stupid, but it is fun to play. I will give it that. Over here, JD800, without the red glue issue, surprisingly, which is good. I only paid like $600 for this, and I think that they're like going for like $2 grand. I don't know how much they are now, but the last time I checked, they were getting insane. Maybe it was 1,200 bucks. I don't know. It sounds epic though. I mean, this is a JD990 as a keyboard version, but they do have like some differences. And I'm not sure if it has something to do with the PCM samples that are in this versus the 990. I know they have different presets. I don't know if anything kind of overlaps because I've never kind of done a one-to-one on those. But this is cool because it's like a D50 with a bunch of controls on it, and it's way more powerful and it sounds awesome. And it's from 1990 or 91, something like that. This is actually the oldest synth that I own. This is the most vintage synth that I have presently. So JP8000, and I have the keyboard version. This I had originally bought from a guy in Colorado. He actually, I think he was selling it to move out to Florida. So I guess I followed him a few years later. But yeah, this is cool. It's plastic. I mean, but yeah, you know, so is this thing. And that was kind of the thing in the 90s. You got these plasticky things, and I don't know, this thing seems to have held up pretty good, and no yellow keys, which is good. No red glue on that one. But yeah, let's talk more about this rack. I've got the, down here is the Roland TR8S. I've done some psytrance with this. It sounds really good, like the all the extra outputs. And we'll come down here. 003 rack is actually connected to this machine as the audio interface for this whole setup in here. I'd usually use inner monitors while I'm out here, or headphones. XR12 has got a feed coming out of this that runs into here that goes into the other room. Motu Express 128 for MIDI. That's because some of these either don't have drivers or don't have anything, so I can either hook up regular MIDI DIN cables to that, or, you know, and then I've just got one interface that goes here. Seems to work pretty good. So that's it, guys. I mean, I have plenty of other stuff that's kind of boxed up or in the closet, and I'm talking like a DeepMind 12, M Audio Venom, an Alesis Ion, Korg MS2000, trying to think, Uno Synth, Uno Drum, bunch of stuff. All the boutiques, I own every boutique that Roland's made. They're all in boxes now because of the rolling cloud. They are lovely, but there's only so much room even in this place. Now I have a whole nother room that I put that stuff in, but it's not set up for display or for use. If I need to pull anything out, I can just walk in there and grab something and set it up and use it. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else. A bunch of circuit bent stuff like speak and reads, and I have what's called a MIDI NES, and I should show you that. So this is the MIDI NES, and I'm gonna have to do this one-handed, so I apologize. But this is a modified MIDI cartridge, or a NES cartridge with a MIDI cable hanging out, and it is a MIDI input. So I can hook this up to a sequencer or a controller or DAW and send the Nintendo direct MIDI control of the different, the sound chip. I think it's like 4 different oscillators and then a PCM slot or something. It's been a long time since I've used this. I'll have to do a video on it because it is really cool. Hopefully it still works. I've had this probably like almost 10 years. I've not seen another one. This was made by a guy named Wayfar or Wayfair, I can't remember his name. And he was notorious for like people ordering these and then just not sending them out. So I don't know. But I do have the manual for it. I have used it. It is super cool and it's super rare, and it's the MIDI NES. So I figured I'd share that because that's pretty unique. And I think that's about it, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the studio here. Share your videos of your studio tours. I'd love to see what you guys have and how you have things set up. Oh, I forgot to mention another kind of truss thing in here for cameras and blah, 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 lights and GoPros and blah, blah, blah. It's all kind of the same stuff. Let me know what you guys think, guys, and hope you have a good week. This is Marshall. Have a good one.